Dear students, now we are going to discuss about the lesson last spring. Let us see the introduction of the lesson. The Last Spring was written by Anis Jung. She is an Indian woman author, journalist, and columnist. She belongs to an aristocratic family of poets. Her most noted work is Unveiling India, which was published in 1987, and it was detailed chronicle of the lives of women in India. The following Lost Spring is an extract from her book titled Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood. Here, in this lesson, she analyzes the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn these children to a life of exploitation. Let us see the summary of this story. There are two parts in this story. The story 1, Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage, is about a boy, Sohib. The story starts with every morning the writer sees a young rag picker boy who visits the garbage dump near her house and searches for gold in it. The writer says that he searches for gold ironically because although the garbage dump is full of useless, thrown away things, still he shuffles it so minutely as if he will get something as precious as gold from it. The boy's name is Sahib. His home in Dhaka was in the middle of lush green fields. They had left it many years ago and he does not remember it anymore. His mother had told him that there were many storms which destroyed their homes and fields, so they left home and shifted to the cities in search of gold. The writer again says, looking for gold in the big city. Gold here refers to something precious which was not available in their hometown. Things like shoes, money, bag, etc. for the children, and food, clothing, shelter as means of survival for their parents. The boy searches for such precious things in the garbage dumps. One day the writer questions Sahib and asks him the reason for shuffling through the garbage. Sahib replies to the writer that he has nothing else to do other than rag picking. The writer suggests that he should go to school. She realizes that her advice is meaningless for the poor boy. He replies that there are no schools in the area where he lives. He also assures her that he will go to school when one is built near his house. The writer asks him jokingly that if she opened a school, would he attend it? Sahib says that he would join the writer's school, and after a few days he runs up to her to ask whether her school is ready. The writer replied that it takes a lot of time to build a school. She felt ashamed and making a false promise. She had said this as a joke and had never intended to open a school, so she felt ashamed of herself. The writer had known Sahib for a few months. When she asked his name, he replied as if he was making the announcement that his name was Sahib e Alm. The writer thought that the boy did not know the meaning of his name, and if he came to know that his name meant the Lord of Universe, he would not able to believe it. His name was opposite to his life. He went around the streets with a group of friends. It was like an army of boys who did not wear any footwear. They appeared in the morning like the morning birds and disappeared at noon. The writer could recognize all of them as he had been seeing them for the past few months. The writer asked one of them that why he was not wearing any footwear. The boy simply replied that his mother did not get them down from the shelf. As they were beyond his reach, he did not wear them. Another boy, who was wearing a different shoe in each foot, said that even if his mother would have given him the footwear, he would have thrown it away. He meant that the boy was not wearing footwear because he did not want to wear one. The writer asked the second boy the reason for wearing a different shoe in each foot. He did not reply and shuffled his feet as he tried to hide the shoes. A third boy spoke that he was eager to get a pair of shoes as he had never owned one all his life. She further tells us that as she traveled across the country, she had seen many children walking barefoot in the cities as well as the villages. The reason that they were barefoot not due to lack of money to buy footwear, but being barefoot was a tradition for them. The writer wondered and concluded that the reason, if it being a tradition, was a mere excuse to hide the fact that they were so poor that they could not afford footwear. The writer narrates a story told to her by a man from Udupi. Udupi is a town in Karnataka. When he was a young boy, he would walk to his school. On the way, he would cross a temple where his father worked as a priest. He would stop at the temple and pray to God to bless him with a pair of shoes. After 30 years, the writer visited the town and the temple. Now the place was nearly empty. The new priest lived in the backyard of the temple. Plastic chairs in the red and white color were kept there. A young boy came running. He was wearing grey colored school uniform, socks, and shoes. He had a school bag hung on his shoulders. He threw it on the bed and ran away. The writer wants to say that the financial position of the priest at the temple had improved over the last 30 years. Now he could afford shoes for these children. She was reminded of another boy who got a pair of shoes. He prayed to the goddess that he may never lose the shoes that he had got. The goddess had granted his prayer as the boy never lost his footwear. This shows us that the underprivileged value anything that they got because they have been longing for it. The writer describes the area where these ragpicker boys live. Simaburi, located in Delhi, was very different from the capital of the country. In 1971, when these ragpickers had migrated from Bangladesh, the area had been wasteland. Simaburi was still a wasteland, but now it was not an empty, as almost 10,000 ragpickers lived there in structures made of mud, with roofs made of thin sheets of tin or plastic material called tarpaulin. There was no sewage, drainage, or running water facility in Simaburi. They lived in unhygienic conditions. It was a piece of wasteland where the garbage of the city was collected. These people had started living there illegally. The ragpickers had been living illegally in Simaburi for the last 30 years. They have occupied the area without government permission or ownership. The politicians of the area have provided them ration cards and voter identity cards. They got grocery for their family through these ration cards, and in return they cast their votes in favor of the politician who had helped them. The writer asked a group of women who were wearing torn saris that why did they leave their homes in Dhaka? They replied that if they were able to satisfy the hunger of their families and sleep well at night, they were happier to live in Simaburi than their fields in Dhaka, which were ruined and gave them no food. These people traveled in search of food, and wherever they found it, they set up temporary homes and started living there. Their children kept on growing there, and gradually they also started helping their parents in seeking means of survival. For those who lived in Simaburi, the means of survival was rag picking. As they had been doing it for many years, they became trained at rag picking and did it well. For the rag pickers, the garbage was as precious as gold. These families searched the garbage dumps and got things which they sold to fund their food. They gathered torn or damaged seeds which were used to cover the roofs of their homes. These did not cover them well, but still provided them with some protection. For the children, the garbage dumps were more than a means of survival. Sahib was happy to say that sometimes he found a rupee and even a 10 rupee note in the dump, as one often finds even a silver coin in the garbage dump. He kept on searching, hoping to find more. For the children, the garbage dump was a means of fulfilling their dreams, although partially, while for their parents, it was a means of aiding survival by providing the basics food, clothing, and shelter. One winter morning, the writer saw Sahib standing by the fence of a club. He was watching a tennis game being played by two young men. Sahib liked the game but could not play it. He told the writer that he went inside the club when it would be closed. He was allowed to take swings by the god there. The writer saw that Sahib was also wearing tennis shoes. They did not look appropriate with his dress, which was worn out and had faded. He told the writer in an attempt to justify himself that someone gave him the shoes. She, however, figured out that he had got them from the garbage dump. They must have been thrown away by a boy from a rich family as he did not want to wear them any more. Probably they had a hole or two in them due to which he did not want to wear them. On the contrary, Sahib was not bothered by this fact and had no problem wearing them as he could not afford anything better than that. He walked barefoot, and to wear a shoe even with a hole was like a dream for him. Although, due to the garbage dump, Sahib's dream of wearing shoes had been partially fulfilled, but his desire to play tennis would never be fulfilled. One morning, the writer met Sahib, who was on his way to the milk booth. He was holding a steel container. He told her that he had got job at the nearby tea stall. He would earn 800 rupees a month and get meals too. The writer asked him if he liked the job as he could see that he had lost the carefree look. As now Sahib was working for someone else and was carrying his master's container. He was burdened with responsibility. Earlier, as a rag picker, Sahib would carry his own bag and was his own master. Now he was no longer his own master. This is the summary of the lesson Lost Spring, Part 1. Dear children, I hope you all understand the summary. Thank you.